don't know. This JD Vance thing is particularly ridiculous. Matt, you may have some opinions on this, but JD Vance, author and now congressional candidate, is that correct? Or Senate candidate?
I think he's considering it. Is it official?
Well, God help us either way. We'll look that up after we pull up this ridiculous tweet that he used.
He's planning on the Senate, yeah.
Yeah, so he's planning to run for the Senate. His book is incredibly famous. He wrote Hillbilly Elegy, which a lot of kind of affluent liberals found to be very, very compelling. And quite quickly, a lot of criticism came towards the book, rightly so. And it makes sense.
Not before they can make a Netflix movie.
Exactly, which was regrettably involved Glenn Close and Amy Adams, who are two great actresses who embarrassed themselves in that film. JD Vance tweets this: universal childcare is a massive subsidy to the lifestyle preferences of the affluent over the preferences of the working middle and working class. So this is what he's trying to say here. He's trying to, I guess, flip the concept of universal childcare on its head in order to make it seem like it's essentially, okay, I'm sorry, I need to reread it again. Universal childcare is a massive subsidy to the lifestyle preferences of the affluent over the preferences of the middle and working class. So this is some of the very similar to the talking point that we heard in the Democratic primary from some of the more right-wing Democrats about free college for all, how you would be paying for the college tuitions of the wealthiest kids in the country. And this was actually a boon to the wealthy, when in reality, of course, this is just a way to repurpose leftist rhetoric in order to create some sort of reaction in a reactionary culture.
Yeah, it's just this is the PMC. These are PMC policy grift. And like the thing is like, would they use paid family leave? First of all, you could use it forever for whatever you want, I would hope, which is like, if you want to use it to work a 5-day-a-week job, that's available to you because it's universal. If you want to have like a extended weekend where you leave your kids for a couple days at some or whatever it is, right? Like you have them stay with friends and then there's daycare during the day. Basically, it frees people from the workplace. And the Josh Hawley bill that he proposes later in that thread has a work requirement for benefits. So like the idea that he's received some new religion about how coercive like the workplace is, this is not how to do it. This is not how to address that.
Right. I mean, the argument here that he's making is basically, because that chart he shows is basically, there's a higher percentage of people without a 4-year college degree who has one parent working and one parent stay at home. So his whole argument is based on the fact that those people, those working class, non-college educated working people, will not be able to take advantage of this. I mean, so just what you do is you put that universal healthcare funding towards the parent that's staying home with the kid, being that they are providing the healthcare,
Right.
the childcare service to the kid. I mean, it's not that difficult. You're basically putting money in these working people's pockets. And, like you mentioned, the Hawley bill that he's promoting. I mean, you tell them that you tell working people that they get free childcare so they can work and not have to pay for it. That versus what the Hawley bill puts forward, and that's tax credits. You think they're going to go, goo goo gaga for the tax credits, and that's what they want? Come on, this is just, and I can tell you from this is a personal thing here. I can tell you that when my son was born in 2015. You might notice that's also when I left this show, when I was working for the Majority Report full time. And the reason I left was because I needed to get a higher paying job, because we were going to be without one income, my partner and I. And she never planned to not go back to work. But once we had our son, when we looked at how much childcare was, we basically paying her whole salary, sometimes even more than that, towards childcare. So what's the point when she could just stay home and also benefit from having time with the kids? So that was what we decided. Imagine, who knows what would happen if we had that childcare money, which she still stayed home, maybe. But imagine what we could do with an extra income too, if she was getting the universal childcare funding as the child caretaker in this situation.
That's why it's no surprise that like high earning couples like the idea of paid universal childcare more, is because they don't have that trade-off like you did. They're going to go make plenty at their second job. So that becomes like, it's not what the point. So yeah, his data is completely useless, but that shouldn't be a surprise from somebody who's Peter Thiel and Mercer family stalking horse. That's all. Forget whoever is telling you that you need to take him seriously, because otherwise it's like liberal professional middle class gatekeeping. This guy is a plant. He's a reactionary plant, and he should be treated with nothing but disgust and disdain.
How is it that like these Ivy League law, guys with law degrees have become ciphers for the working and middle class just by virtue of coming from a state in the middle of the country? Like, how did that so seamlessly happen? Was it greased along by like the PMC coastal elites?
Well, exactly it is. I mean, they see this as some sort of window. I mean, this Hillbilly Elegy came out, I believe, after Trump won. And the discussion about this is a window into the mind of the Trump voter from the PMC coastal elite class. But the kind of rhetoric that was written about in this book, I'm reading this from Sarah Jones's review of Hillbilly Elegy in the New Republic. Just a quote from this, talking about his own experience growing up in rural white poverty, basically. "We spent our way to the poorhouses," he writes. "We buy giant TVs and iPads. Our children wear nice clothes thanks to high interest credit cards and payday loans. We purchase homes we don't need, refinance them for more spending money, and declare bankruptcy, often leaving them full of garbage in our wake. Thrift is inadmissible. I don't know what that word is. Inimical. INIMICAL. Jesus, this is great broadcasting by me. Inimical to our being. So, I mean, this was just the kind of rhetoric that he had in his book.
Right. Yeah. I mean, how many of these grifters have come up because of these liberal elites? Like this whole, like, I feel like they constantly put these like coastal liberals that we were mentioning before, like the New York Times gave this book great reviews. The Washington Post said this guy is like because the voice for like, this is just ridiculous. Like, they constantly prop these people up, and then all of us have to friggin' deal with these guys for the next like 10 years.
It's because if you look at the editorial board of any of those newspapers, like 90% of the people are Ivy League freaks. That's just the reality. They have no sense of like what an actual working person goes through. If they do, it's an accident, and they were like they're probably like super gifted coming up, and now think that that's just how the world works. So they have that narrative about themselves. Like these are the same institution. Like JD Vance and the Washington Post editorial board, it's the same vampires, just in a different uniform.
Public policy can help, he writes, but there's no government that can fix these problems for us. He's just like an anti-government, as you've said, Peter Thiel plant, who has nothing really interesting to say except for the fact that he went to a fancy school and thus got and came from an impoverished background, and so it's been fetishized by certain people who just purely because of his degrees and the fact that he was able to go to these kinds of schools. It's like this bootstraps Cinderella story that is again fetishized by certain powers that be in our media and culture.
But in his book, he's resentful of like poor people in the Midwest as well, and now he's sort of running on like the ideals of like that sort of like bootstraps mentality. So I'm trying to figure out like how he's trying to have it both ways in his mind or in his campaign and his personal philosophy, and it's bizarre to me, and I don't see how it can work.
I mean, I think a lot of people are trying this project now where you just ignore everything the conservatives do and emphasize every sort of stab in the back that you get from liberals. That's what he's going to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And just one more thing about it. Part of why I think this book also had success was because centrally he is blaming poor people for their poverty.
Culture. He's making a culture critique. Yeah, it's a culture of poverty.
Right. That and the culture of poverty. Right. So it's just changing and giving a new flavor to the welfare queen argument.
Well, yeah, it's Charles Murray did 2 books. The Bell Curve is obviously the most famous one because it tries to naturalize these inequalities biologically. But he also wrote a second book about how white people just culturally and like Appalachian stuff, they just can't do it. So like any attempt to make them better materially is doomed to fail because of their culture. And that's just that like this is as old as fucking time. Honestly, this is old as like capitalism or even like prior existing power arrangements, like lazy. Yeah, it's
right.
It's transparent, and it's an indictment of the media class and people who like to indict the media class that like we're trying to launder this guy still.
Right. Yeah, these working class warriors like JD Vance and Josh Hawley, they never seem to talk about things like, I don't know, the minimum wage. Interesting,
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, Josh Hawley would love unions. He just thinks in practice they've been too damn corrupt. So I guess we can't do that. Never mentioned like capitalism.
Yeah, right.